Everyone, welcome to Time to Thrive. This is your host, Bethany Meadows. Our guest today is a self-proclaimed world number one failure. We all know that being a business owner means failing forward. So I'm excited to hear his insights on failure and how it can help us succeed. Ben Currier worked in corporate finance and accounting for 15 years and gained experience helping companies in a wide range of industries, including video gaming, jewelry, healthcare, cannabis, real estate, and more. Today, as the owner of Excel Exposure, he provides online Excel training with the goal of helping people become less afraid of the dreaded spreadsheet. As the host of the Failure Guy podcast, Ben interviews successful people about their more challenging times, what they learned, and how failure was a stepping stone to their success. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about it. I like that you say I'll give tips on how to be successful when I maybe haven't figured that part out yet, but I'm happy to tell people
We're
how to
all on a journey.
get more comfortable with failure.
We're figuring it out together. Okay, so one thing that we do in our show at the beginning of the show, because we want to get to know you a little bit. I'm from the South, and here in the South, people want to know who you are before they know what you know. So if you can just pick a number between 1 and 5, and we'll just give you one of these random questions I have here for you.
Okay, my lucky number is 15, so I'm going to pick 1 and 5.
1 and 5. You're feeling brave. You're like 2 questions. All right. What antiquated invention do you still use?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. Um, well, still use or still. So there's a couple things. Like I'll say voicemail or voice message or answering machine. Like I'll use some of those wrong words that are like antiquated, but I'm not talking about the old technology. I'm talking about the new stuff. But
Yeah.
I'll just say the wrong thing because it's still in my mind. But the probably the most antiquated. I mean, honestly, Excel. I mean, it evolves, but I thought it wouldn't be here 20 years ago when I started using Excel. So it's like I thought something else would come along, and not that there aren't options, but most businesses still run on Excel, and I'm like, that's crazy to me because most other things get replaced within 20 years or
Right.
whatever. I thought I wouldn't still be doing Excel. I thought it would
You
be in the
know,
next.
it seemed like wasn't it called Lotus or something?
Yes, Lotus
Wait,
123 was the
yeah,
first version. I
there
actually
you go.
went to high school with Ray Ozzy's son, and Ray Ozzy is one of the ones who developed Lotus 123 in in high school because I went to a private high school, but I was a poor kid at a private high school, so I would latch on to whatever mansion I could go visit, and so I got to go see his place, which was fantastic. He had like a place right in the ocean, trampoline that went into the river, sorry, into the ocean, and you could jump off of it, and it was really cool. And it showed me not only can you make a lot of money with software and things like that, but I learned a bit about the Lotus 123 days because I didn't know much about that. But I thought Excel would have a similar, you know, thing that took over. But there's just a lot of alternatives, but nothing that like corporations embraced as much.
Can you hear that? I have
Yes,
a
I can.
motorcycle that is running up and down the road. It's making lots of noise.
No worries.
So we just got to go with it. Sometimes dogs bark.
But
Sometimes there's motorcycles running around. Okay, your
I
the
feel
number
like there's
5.
something. I feel like there's something. No, okay. Code number 5. If I think of a better antiquated thing, I'll let you know.
Oh
Go.
no, I liked your answer. I thought
Okay,
it was
cool.
an answer, and it took us to this history on Lotus 123. That's so cool. So, what is the one thing you'll be really disappointed if you never get to experience it? I feel like I need Jeopardy music. Maybe I'll insert that later.
Ooh, do, 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 do. I'm just thinking about it because I don't know if I'm going to be upset or I'm going to be disappointed in myself for not getting the courage to do it. Because I'd love to do stand-up comedy, but that is a terrifying venture into having to bomb on stage in front of a lot of people. So
Yeah,
I would also maybe be happy I avoided the failure, but that's part of what my thing is like getting rid of the fear of failure. If you feel like you're afraid of something, you should use that fear as fuel to say that's getting you out of your comfort zone. That's maybe something you
right.
should approach if it's something you
Overcome
want.
it.
So I'm gonna say stand-up comedy, even though I don't see myself doing it anytime soon. And as a backup, I'm gonna say write a book, which is great because you do a lot of things like just have written a book and have your
Yes.
workshops. So writing a book would be something I would actually be disappointed about not doing. The stand-up is more like I wish I could, but I don't know if I'll get there mentally.
That's a good answer. And you just need an open mic night and 5 minutes of material, and you're in business.
Yeah, and then no one will care, and people will not laugh and just drink their weird random drinks and not know who you are. I feel like open mics are like the worst setup for an intro to it. I want to start with a Netflix special or something where they already love me, but
Yeah,
I can't do that.
go straight to the success part. Well, that's part of what we're going to talk about today, right? There's a lot
Absolutely.
of failure on the road to success. Did you have an aha moment when you realized where you realized the value of failure, and how did this become a passion point for you?
Yes. So, um, although probably 4 years ago, I would never say this publicly. I've been fired from every job I've had since graduating college, which is six for six now. All those industries you mentioned, they said see you later in either layoff or other terms. And so I'm like, okay, I went to undergrad. I went to graduate school. I got my master's in business. I followed all the rules. I did everything you all told me to do. I followed the blueprint, but I wasn't prepared for corporate politics and just the games that you have to play
Yeah.
when you're in that world. And so I was like, oh, I'll just get better at the software. If I get better at the software in my job, which was Excel, even though I had one Excel class and all that undergrad and graduate, I had one Excel class and then 99% of what I did was in Excel. So I was like, that's a bit off. But also, I was just thinking, it would be great if people had more access to training like that. So, like, even when I started my Excel exposure training, that was in 2011. For the first 8 years, there was no ads. There was no way to pay me. I was paying money to teach people for 8 years. It didn't make any sense. But because I felt like I didn't have the credibility or legitimacy, it was probably imposter syndrome type stuff. And
Mhm.
then B, I wanted to make sure that people who didn't go get an undergrad and a graduate degree and still didn't learn to Excel or had never gone to school had a way that was free with zero friction to learn the thing. And then I figured I'd get better at teaching it. So it took me till 2019. So I started in 2011. 2019 is when I launched my first paid course. Still, all the old free stuff is the main site. And then, like, over on the side, it says premium course here because I just don't like selling things, which I'm sure you can help me with because you're a
Yes.
marketing person. But it's just, I feel like I've been so broken down by sales folks over the time that I have such a high barrier to sales that when I become the one on the other side of that wall, I barrier myself, if that makes sense.
Right. You
And
you have
so
this where you don't like salespeople. I hate salespeople because
no, yeah, almost everybody does.
salespeople have one goal, and that's to part you with your money.
Yeah, and
But
that's not
really, what
mine.
if you do it right? If you do it in um, a way that would make it okay for you is to focus on it as a building relationships with people through value
Mhm.
and really sincerely wanting to help them, which is you.
Yeah, and
And
that's so, like, the one of the people who helped me, a book by Phil M. Jones. It's actually an audiobook only because as I mentioned, I can't really read books. I tend to listen to them. So I was begging you to make an audiobook of Your Juggle is Real.
yes,
But he says you're earning the right to make a recommendation. And always, if you're providing more value than you're charging, you shouldn't feel bad about it. But I feel like I'm grouped in with charlatans and whatnot sometimes because of the way that so
right,
many people are doing it. And so I got to figure out a way to not come across that way while still staying true to myself, which is part of the struggle there.
right,
And, like, even my mailing list, I don't really mail them that much. And approaching 19,000 people on my mailing list, and they're all just forgetting who I am, most likely because I'm not, you
right,
know, doing the right thing. So I know I have a lot of opportunity, but my negative associations with either failure, which was the first part I was trying to, like, demystify for myself because I was reading all these self-help books that were like, said do all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't been able to do any of that. But a lot of them said get comfortable with failure. And I'm like, oh, I'm really good at failing. So I might as well get comfortable with it because that seems to be something that they say to do that I could do because I have a lot of opportunities. So at that point, I decided to go to the DMV and get a uh, failure license plate that said failure on it. And then
right. You just embraced it. You went all in.
I definitely debated it some mornings when I walked up to my car and I go, "What am I doing?" And when I see the plate, because I'm like, "Is this negative reinforcement or what? What am I doing?" But I really wanted to take the sting out of the word because everyone I've talked to who is successful has said that there is no way to do it without having some failure. And a lot of people don't do things in life, like comedy for me, because of the fear of failure. And
Right.
so, or the fear of failure, like even getting close to the possibility of failure, they'd rather do the thing that they know works, or follow the blueprint of other people. And truly creative folks, like I would say you and I, who are doing things
Right.
that have no path. Like, we don't. I'm on episode 75. I didn't know what I was doing at episode one, and I barely. I'm figuring out. I'm cobbling together knowledge over time, but that's why I hate the fake it till you make it thing, because that seems like a salesperson. And I say fail it till you nail it, because it's like you really got to just keep messing up,
I
learning,
love that. Fail it
and
until you nail it. That's
yeah,
going to become a quote graphic. I can tell
it,
you that right
it'll
now.
be the book name, I think.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. What is the mindset around failure that is tied to becoming successful?
Well, so I think my problem was I did all that schooling. I did a job that I thought was supposed to be what I should do, because when you're 18 and you're in college,
Right.
you have no idea what a job really is like. So I'm like, well, every company needs an accountant, so I'll just pick that one, I guess, because I'm good at math. And then I realized I hate accounting so much, so I switched to be
But
more
you
like
love
full.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, I do. But I switched to more like forward-looking financial forecasting, because to me that's more interesting than what did we do last month. I mean, no one goes, "Hey, hooray, accounting, you did it! You closed the month, everybody, hooray!" No, they applaud the salespeople and they applaud the other ones. Accounting's like, "Hey, why aren't you guys done yet?" kind of thing, and it's all historical. So it's just very. There's no creativity except for like how you would maybe build spreadsheets better to save yourself time. But my problem with corporate America also is that, like, if I take a 40-hour task and make it take 1 hour, I get 39 hours of other work to do. And the person who takes 40 hours to do it still does that. So like I don't get to keep the time I save. And I realized unless I was doing business for myself and being an
Right.
entrepreneur, that I wouldn't be able to ever scale my time savings.
Right. You know what? One of the things that people don't often think about when it comes to failure is that when you have experience failing, you become more fearless.
Hmm.
Can you speak that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. First I'm going to say, if you have the ability to, I doubt the women listeners of your audience will, but if you can grow a beard, or if you don't know if you can grow a beard and you're a man, I took to the pandemic for me to grow a beard. But this beard has made me feel much more comfortable on camera, because I used to never put myself in my Excel videos. It would just be screen recordings, and you would not, I'd be like a headless horseman voice who talked to you, but I wouldn't show myself because I felt so exposed. And so since I grew a beard, I'm literally saying like that helped me, because it felt like I was a different person than I was used to seeing, and it made me feel more comfortable on camera. But the other thing is, like, since I was let go from all those jobs, and since I could lie to myself and future employers about what was going on, I wasn't facing the reality of what happened there. I was trying to always spin it like this or that or the other thing, and not addressing the core issues that caused me to have it, which is, I don't like being micromanaged, and I like doing more creative things. And of course, I picked accounting, which is like the least creative field. It's like the stereotypical comedians like go to boring person job. So it's like, man, as an extrovert, choosing to talk to people through numbers in spreadsheets, like, it was not the way to feed my soul. And then I joke that I would not want to take my work home with me, so I wouldn't financially plan my own life, because I was so burnt out on finances that I wouldn't want to even do much of that. So I thought, like, oh, my own stuff is where I can play around. And that led to even worse things, because then I made decisions that made no sense, because I wasn't using my knowledge for business, because I was so tapped
Right.
out. I was just focusing on making sure the business thing. And then when they want you to say like, "Hey, we're a family, company culture, yay," and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, bye forever,
Yeah.
immediately. See ya. We'll walk you out. We don't trust you to even walk yourself out." Oh, I thought we were family. Don't you? You don't want me to be over for Thanksgiving? It's like they want everything and they give nothing, and it's just depending on how extreme the company is. I mean, I've had some great jobs where I loved it, like the video game company, fantastic. There's a lot of jobs that I liked, but a lot of times just because a coworker or somebody has a grudge against you, or I've even hired two people who fired me. So I hired them, because they fit a gap that I didn't have. But then that gap that they filled ended up screwing me over because I was trying to bring in someone who could complement or like supplement for the things that I wasn't good with. But then they just hated what I wasn't good at, which is the things they liked. So like trying to do the right thing a lot of times screws you over when it comes to being a profit-based, sales-based business environment, corporate environment, especially with all the hierarchy and structure and things like that. And so it's like, I don't know if I can work for another company. If I do, it's going to just be, it's going to be more difficult just based on all the bad experiences I've had. And they don't want me. So shouldn't I just go do my own thing? Because clearly I want me. So why wouldn't I want to invest in myself and my own business and trying to increase that now, while at the same time, again, I have ADHD. So I've got my Excel site. I'm podcrastinating with the Failure Guy podcast. And then I've also got like AI art and all these other things that I'm like doing that aren't helping the Excel business. So like I need to micromanage myself, but I hate being micromanaged. So it's all sorts of weird, negative, self-limiting beliefs that I'm trying to
Dynamic going
destroy.
on there.
Yeah.
It kind of leads me to my next question, which is, failure is only useful if we learn from it.
Yes. Thank you so
And
much.
you've obviously learned a lot from all those experiences of being let go and, what that looks like. And it really required you to self-evaluate so that you could learn from it. What are some good ways to reevaluate after you've had a failure?
Well, see, here's what I'll say. The true definition of failure in my mind is having a mistake or a failure like that and not learning from it. That is failure.
That's true failure.
Everything else is something you did that didn't work out that you can learn from. And you want to squeeze the juice out of that learning because it costs you so much mentally, physically. You don't want to let all that you spent on that mistake go to waste. You want to do some self-reflection and think, well, what nuggets of information can I pull from this so that next time I email my mailing list, the wrong link isn't there or whatever. Like there's all sorts of things when you mess up for the first time, you're like, even if someone tells you how to do it, like when you do it yourself, you're like, ooh, that hurt. That was not good. I don't like the feeling of that. I better make sure all my links work or whatever the thing is. It's like, make sure it's okay to feel bad in the moment because we're not robots, but don't just stuff it down. I'm Irish Catholic from Boston. We just stuff it down. We don't talk about our feelings. We just jam it in. And so be open to self-reflection without judgment, because no one knows you better than you. And even if you have been rejected by every publisher in the world trying to get a book published or whatever, it doesn't matter. I know there's plenty of stories of, I think like J.K. Rowling trying to pitch Harry Potter to whatever, 1,000 people or something. And then it's a multi-billion-dollar thing at the end of it. So like people aren't comfortable with things that don't fit into a box, but the real creative people who make magical things happen are like always stepping outside of their comfort zone to try things that may or may not work. And the guarantee of not having it work, or like the guarantee of like success, is what people want. And there's no such thing as that unless you take the most boring, bland route in life. And even then, like I said, I think I took kind of that route. You're still not guaranteed to succeed because you might not fit in that part of the world, because you followed someone else's blueprint that doesn't necessarily match yours.
Right. Well, one of the things that overcoming failure can teach us is resilience. And
yes,
resilience is really important to finding success, because if we quit when things don't go as expected, obviously we're not going to get anywhere because things aren't going to go as expected. On your podcast, you interview a lot of successful people. Overall, how important is resilience to finding business success?
Unbelievably important, but I'd say it's a combination. I don't know if you've read the book, not The War of Art by Sun Tzu, but The Art of War by Stephen Pressfield, and it's talking about the how difficult it is to be an artist. And not only do you have to have resilience during the tough times, which is what I definitely agree with, but you need to be able to overcome resistance. Whenever you feel like you're resisting doing something, like, oh, I should write that email to this company or whatever, but I'm resisting, it's easy to give into the resistance and procrastinate and do things like that. So like, not only is getting better at dealing with failure helping with your overall resilience and ability to bounce back, but it helps you be able to fight that resistance that you start feeling when you're like, oh, whatever I need. It could be anything, laundry.
Yeah.
Oh wait, but instead I'm gonna distract myself away from it. If you can battle resistance and go, no, this is me trying to avoid doing the thing that I'm scared of. That's really, you know, the one of the main things is like you only build up resilience by experiencing failure and bouncing back. That's something that you can't learn without kind of
Right.
doing it, or at least it's very difficult in my experience. But defeating the resistance monster or whatever in your head, that's something you could try to prepare for and try to say, okay, like I haven't written an email to my mailing list. I really should do that. Um, Stop, messing around, get to it, whatever it is that you got to tell yourself in order to pass through that resistance. Even starting a podcast. I don't know how you started yours, but I didn't have any experience in podcasting. I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm on episode 75 now, but I started at episode 1 with terrible camera quality, terrible mic, terrible editing skills, etc. And then I
Right.
fail it till I nail it. I'm not nailing it still. Just the other day, I'm pretty sure I realized my show notes and my summary are not, I think they're backwards or whatever. I mess up all the time. But thankfully, since I'm branded as the world's number one failure, at least I can say, well, what do you expect, everybody?
That's kind of handy.
And there's no competition. World's number one
No
accountant,
matter
there
what
is.
happens, you're on brand. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. But there is world's number one car salesman, world's number one accountant, world's number one whatever. No one's trying to be the world's number one failure. So it's like, oh, okay, I'll just sneak into that area, and then if someone else beats me and becomes number one, it's like a paradox because I failed. So I don't know, the universe implodes on itself or something. But my point is I can't lose because if I lose, I win by failing. So I don't know.
That's even better. I love it. Oh, there's a Zig Ziglar quote that I really like. It's not how far you fall, but how high you bounce that counts.
Mm-hmm.
Does that quote resonate with you?
It does. And also I think on one of my emails I have a signature that says it's like a Japanese proverb. It's like fall down 7 times and get up 8 or something. And
Yeah.
then but it is. And it's not easy to bounce back, especially when you're bouncing back right into the thing you hated before. It can be tough because
because you got the sting of failure and you're coming
there's-
back to potentially fail again.
yeah. But I think the most important thing is we all get one life. I mean, unless you, depending on your beliefs, whatever, we get one on Earth life,
Right.
and we can do whatever we want with it. And if you're mostly following what other people are telling you to do, you should maybe reevaluate: is this where I want to go in life, and what else could I be doing that would satisfy my soul rather than the thing that might be draining from your soul?
Right. I love that. One of the other areas of failure that I really like is that it promotes innovation if we let it. The marketplace right now is so demanding. Like all our customers, they want the best. They want it yesterday. I mean,
So annoying.
it's very demanding, right? So
as a solopreneur, it's very, very annoying.
business owners use failure as a stepping off point for innovating, or they can. So
But they don't.
can you speak to that? Just how can business owners use failure to help innovate their products and services?
I think there's 2 big things. One is make it okay culturally within the company to admit mistakes. At this moment,
Ooh,
most
that's a good
companies tell them this better be right, basically, and if it's not right, you're going to get chastised. And so therefore people focus more on that than being creative, and saying, okay, admit that, hey, some things aren't going to go right. The more likely you are to embrace that as a philosophy, the more likely they're going to come to you when they have a mistake rather than try to hide it or, lie to you about it or whatever it is. The more you have an open book, open idea mentality towards the possibility of failure or at least admitting mistakes. So that's part one, is to make it have the CEO admit mistakes he made, to the people, whatever it is, lead by example, and show that we all make mistakes. You're not going to lose your job over it. And we encourage you to try to come up with new things, because that's the other part, is they don't encourage new behavior. They usually want people to do the same thing they did last month, this month, and creativity rarely comes out of that,
right. You can't innovate if you're worried about covering your butt.
Yeah, exactly. And CYA is like a thing, and then they'd have a CYA folder. I'm not going to say what it means because I don't know if I can
Yeah.
say it, but cover your butt folder where they have all the things I did wrong over the past 4 years or whatever in a folder. And I'm like, I could have had a folder of all your stuff, but I just wasn't keeping track. Because why would I do that? I don't
Right.
like. I want everyone to win. I don't want to be adversarial in our own company. It doesn't make sense. We're all same team. Why wouldn't we want to be helping each other get better? Rather than saying I'm better than this person. So because it becomes a competition within the own company. So the more that you embrace collaboration over competition, I think it's a huge piece of it.
I was at a business event a few years ago, and I wish I could remember his name but I'm doing it on the spot, so it'll come to me after. But he was the former CEO of Ford Motor Company, and he took over Ford when Ford was failing. Ford was on its way down, and he was brought in to try and save it. And so in his first month, he was like meeting with all the people, all the executives, the management teams, and Ford is an international company. So he's meeting with the team over here in this country and the team over there in that country. And one of his questions when he would meet with them is, how are things going? Where, how's this project going? And everybody was always green light. Everything is great. Everything was great all the time.
Yep.
Well, obviously everything's not great because the company is on its way down.
Yeah. Unless you look at the numbers and stuff, everything's great. Everything's
everything's
in our
great.
area
My
for sure.
project
Everything's
is perfect.
yeah. There's
And what he
no problems here,
realized
boss.
is they had that CYA culture, and that was their problem. That was what was creating this, this error in the company, and that it wasn't working right. And so he pulled a guy aside and he said, I want you to go into this next meeting and I want you to tell me everything that's going wrong with your project. And he was like, the fear in his eyes and all that. He's like, I'm just assuring you that it's fine. So the guy went into the meeting. He shared red light, things are not, they use this like red light, yellow light, green light kind of thing. And he said he gave all the red lights, things that weren't working right in his project. And then everybody was like, oh, like nobody could believe that he had just done that. And then the CEO applauded him and rewarded him and acknowledged him. Yes. And then when we had the next meeting and he asked people to share, a few more people got brave enough to do it. And then as time went on, it just became part of the culture because it was seen as being acceptable, not only acceptable, but expected. And that's what ultimately led to, to them pulling back out of their decline.
I've got 3 things to mention on that, surprisingly. So, first thing, when you get a big company like that, I think you kind of get that too many chefs issue where you just get the average, most mundane thing because it's everybody has issues. They want to sharpen off all the edges and make it as mediocre as possible because they know that's less risky,
Right.
They don't want to have those red light moments. So they're like, what do we know and what do we don't know? I remember giving a presentation, and then probably an hour later afterwards, looking back at my spreadsheet and realizing, oh no, I didn't factor in depreciation. So it should be $2 million less in revenue next year than I just told them. And what I did was went and told them that I made a mistake. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make sure next time it's a bulletproof spreadsheet or whatever and own my mistake. But I want to let you know that even though it's fictional, it hasn't happened yet. You have to take that fictionality and bring it down by 2 million because my formulas weren't working properly because this was before I knew how to do certain things. But having admitted it was such a weight off my shoulders versus if I had just tried to hide it and then figure out how to make it still come out the same way with the problem fixed, because
blown back on you and
over everybody
sideways.
And then what you're saying about the CEO embracing the attitude. I love that because a lot of CEOs and C-suite execs do what I've referred to or I've heard called the swoop and poop method, which is when they come in with almost no context and then they just criticize the things because they know how to criticize, but they don't know how to innovate. So they come in and they say, I don't like this, that, and the other thing, and then they go away. So that's the swoop. down, poop all over the project, and then scare them, I guess, into making something better. But that's not usually the way that helps people. It just it kind of makes the opposite effect. You feel just worse afterwards. So I'm glad that he was doing the let's call it loop and elevate. I can't come up with a better word that rhymes, but loop and alley oop or whatever something. But basically, we're there not only leading by example, but he was having someone else do something that he wanted from his employees, so then he could do the leading by example in that scenario. So I like that example, and I know that they have. I think the F-150 is the number one selling truck in the world or something
Yeah.
like that. So I'm sure they bounced back, and I'm not sure what things were involved, but I'm sure that type of mentality, because a lot of times there's a lot of disconnect between the upper management C-suite people and the people doing the actual work. And as that gap widens, both care less about each other. So the people doing the work care less what the guy thinks, and the or not that it has to be a guy, but in my experience, the CEOs have been guys. I'd love to have more women CEOs, but once that gap widens, it's like they can't even talk to each other in the same language about how to correct issues. It just kind of becomes more of an us versus them. Like, let's just placate the CEO and the executives, and the executives are like, let's just make sure we get it, squeeze every bit out of them as we can, and like both of those together just make it really difficult to find any flaws in the business or become creative. And you notice that a lot of people who disrupt industries aren't typically the ones who are already in it, like Tide or whatever. It's some other company that comes in and finds that creativity niche where they can really make
Right.
themselves stand out. And
Have
a
a
lot of big
differential.
companies don't want to lose what they have,
Right.
you know.
One of my favorite stories about failure came from Sarah Blakely, I think's her name, with
Spanx.
Spanx. And she talks about growing up and how her dad at the dinner table would ask, every day, how did you feel today? And
Mhm.
so it just made it a very normal
Yeah.
thing growing up for her to talk about failures and what she learned from them every day with her dad. And I'm sure she carried that over into her business world as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that story. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah. No, go
I'm
ahead.
saying I've heard it, and I think she's spot on. And that parent, her dad, I don't know how he got that gem of an idea,
Yeah,
but
right.
that is like something that's really difficult to want to address with your kids every day at dinner or whatever it is,
Yeah, but it's certainly something that you could do around a conference room,
Hmm.
with your team. Like, how did we fail today? And
Yeah.
then just kind of celebrating the lesson rather than being upset about
Yeah.
the failure itself. Because we got to accept that failures happen,
Yeah.
whether we acknowledge them or not.
Yeah. How did we fail, and how can we learn
Right.
from it
But
collectively?
it's that
Because
whole
when someone
mindset and that culture thing that I love.
Yeah, when someone vulnerably shares their failure, everyone else wants to help them figure out how can we do this better? Like, what did we all? Is there any contribution that we all made to make this harder on that person as they're sharing it? Because they're being just like that one person you mentioned was who was stepping outside of the box of the company and saying it. It does encourage more people to go, oh, okay, maybe I should tell them about this thing that's been bugging me for a long time that I just haven't wanted to address because I think I just get shot down or have more work from it or whatever the thing is. It's just embracing a culture of not trying to make mistakes. We don't want to fail. I'm not saying failure is a destination. What I'm saying is that it has to be a necessary stepping stone to success, because you can't have success without failure unless you're truly born into it. And even those people aren't happy all the time. Like, there's really no way besides getting used to the fact that there's going to be pain and struggle and things, but you're going to learn from it. And next time you'll do it better
Yeah.
if you embrace it.
And sometimes the failure is not yours. Sometimes it's a vendor that's let you down. And
Hmm.
within our marketing agency, each of my team members have been given a dollar number that they can use to take care of our customers if something goes sideways without even talking to me.
Love it.
And so that's just empowering them in the moment to say, yes, we're going to take care of
Yeah,
this, or
this
we're
is
going to make
BS.
this
I'm gonna
happen.
fix this issue because
Yeah.
I don't want to go through the red tape.
But we have that happen a lot with vendors. Something we sent to print, for example, and it
Hmm.
comes back and it's and it's all messed up or askew, and it wasn't our fault. It happened at the print stage. But, I want them to be empowered to say, no, we're going to take care of it no matter what.
Yeah, because you'll lose a customer over it if you just follow
Exactly.
the textbook, whatever script of what you're supposed to say to them. Yeah.
Exactly. As we wind down the episode, what is the one big takeaway that you hope business owners understand from this whole discussion on the merits of failure?
So if you're a business owner and you are successful, don't do the social media highlight reel thing where you tell everybody how successful you are. Be vulnerable and share how difficult it was to get there, because I know it wasn't easy, you liar. If you're lying and saying it was easy and I woke up and I did it, woke up at 5 a.m. and worked out, and then I crushed it at work for 12 hours, and then I went home to my wife and kids and whatever, all that made up story, or like, and then I know you probably took like 20 pictures to get that perfect social media picture, but you don't talk about, like, I love highlighting those type of things. Like, I will leave my own failures in my podcast if I mispronounce the guest's name, which has happened like 5 times, and it's not even hard ones. I'll just say my favorite one is Scott Gazzoli was on. I called him Scott Fuzzoli, which is just a fast food Italian American restaurant, but I left it in. I could cut it out. I cut out my guests' mistakes, but I want people to realize I don't know what I'm doing either, because no one teaches you how to podcast unless you take a course or something. I'd say just embrace the fact that you're going to mess up. Thankfully, it's my brand, but I don't want it to forever be my brand. If I could become successful by being the number one failure, that I would laugh myself to death, because it doesn't make any sense considering all the schooling and work I put into everything else. So I just thought it cracked me up. And not to take too much time, the inception of Failure Guy was because I was going to all these in-person networking events and saying, hey, do you guys want to Excel? And I could see them fall asleep halfway through the word Excel. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna either have to switch up my pitch, or I just started making up new businesses. I've got a bunch of different business cards of things that are fictional. One of them was I'm the world's number one failure, and I would just say that with like no real context as to what it means, and they'd be like, "I thought you're the Excel guy. Like, what are you doing?" Because usually it's the same people. This is back when it was pre-COVID, and you could go to like networking events. They're like, "I've seen you at other things. You're not doing this weird stuff." Usually, I'm like, I just need to spice it up because what I'm doing is not working, and I need to find a way to make things fun. And then I was like, people don't talk about failure enough. And actually, there's a really powerful TED talk from Jai Jiang. He's the guy who wrote Rejection Proof, I think is what it's called. And he talks about, he inspired me to become the failure guy, because he was basically in my eyes, the rejection guy. He came up with 100 different ways in 100 days to go get rejected. Like to ask for a burger refill at a restaurant when he finishes burger. He's like, yeah, you know how they do soda refills? Can you do a burger refill and refill my burger? And they're like, no, of course not. Or like ask someone to pump their gas at the gas station for no reason. Like things that you're because he had to get comfortable with no. And I had to get comfortable with failure. And so I thought if I had to look at it every day in my car, people who are driving near me have to read it, and I have to wonder what they're thinking. After a year and a half, I wasn't even caring what people thought, because I've already desensitized myself to the feeling of being labeled it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think you make a good point that every business owner should be mindful of, and that is being genuine and being real. People connect to that emotionally because they know their own faults too. They know they're not perfect. And it's like, and I'll say this, you might not be able to relate to this as a man, but as a woman, if I go to over a woman's house and it is like immaculate and perfect and everything is in its place, I'm like, we can't be friends.
Yeah. Or you just did that. Like for the last 4 days, you just cleaned.
I had 7 kids, so like my house didn't look like that. Yeah. But tell us where people can connect with you. What is there a website people can go to?
Absolutely. There's a million ways to connect with you. The best ways would be, if you're interested in the Excel training, excelexposure.com is where most of the free training is. If you want the best training, I'd say, because all the free stuff is older. It's from like Excel 2010. I have my premium course, which is you pay one time for lifetime access to the materials. And I'm also trying to revamp that course as well. So that's excelexposure.com. And you can click on the premium course there if you want to see that. If you use the code word failure, the coupon code failure, you will save 20%.
I
but
love
I've
it.
yet to see it be used because my own podcast has no overlap with the people who want to use Excel. So, but also connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my main place. That's where I messaged you when I was coming late to this because of my audio
Yeah.
issues. And, and then if you want to listen to the Failure Guy podcast, look up Failure Guy on any platform. I've had Carol Baskin from Tiger King on. I had Bob Berg, who wrote The Go Giver. I've had Natasha Graziano recently, who's Forbes #1 female motivational speaker under 40.
I watched that
How
one.
did, oh, did you like it?
Yeah.
Was it okay? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I never get feedback. That's the other thing. But
She's way more dressed up than I am. I will say that.
yeah, but my favorite person is Vinny Potestivo, who I think
I
we
love
both
Vinny.
know and both love. And he's such a genuine person that, like, he's one of the few people where I know I'm not being manipulated in any way because he doesn't have to, but also he gets to control how he uses his time, and he's very generous with his time, his insights, and just his knowledge. So I'd say his episode, which was, I interviewed him as well. I believe it's 48, but who knows? Check out Vinny's because I think me and him get along well. We both actually worked at MTV, but we didn't know each other then at the time.
Well, that's a small world moment.
Yeah.
Ben, thank you so much. I love this. This topic has been amazing. And your insights have been awesome. Lots of nuggets. My team's going to have a hard time figuring out which ones to pull out because there's so many.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that you had me on and you're willing to even discuss the topic because a lot of people kind of shy away from it. So I'm glad.
Oh, I'm all in. I'm probably number 2 right behind you. So
hey, I don't mind having a team of people who we all are the like failure squad of superheroes.
I love it. The failure squad.
and since I'm crashed my car, you can get the license plate in any state. If you want to join the one of 50 people who can get a failure plate. So, but thank you so much. I appreciate you for taking the time. And I very much appreciate the difficulties of what it is like to be a host because thankfully I am not guesting enough. So I never get to just hang up and be done. I always have to, and I don't have a team. I'm editing myself. So it's like, I like the fact that, you put so much time and effort into it to make me look better, even though I'm trying to make myself look worse at the same time, depending on who you're asking. But thank you.
I appreciate it, Ben. Thanks.